today's video, I'm shooting a bunch of flagship bows. Stay tuned to see how they all stack up. If you're not familiar with the channel, my name is Clint Campbell and I run the Truth from a Stand deer hunting podcast where we talk all about bow hunting tricks, tips, and tactics. And today I'm shooting a bunch of flagship bows. If you're in the market for a new bow, this episode's for you. All right, what's up, guys? Clint Campbell here with Truth from a Stand with my buddy AJ of Bob and AJ's, and we are going to shoot some of the flagship bows today. And I will let you know which bow I'd be picking if I were picking a new bow this year. As a disclaimer, I currently shoot the Hoyt Carbon RX7, so I think it's a pretty banger bow, so we'll see how these all stack up.
Greatest bow ever.
Greatest bow ever.
I think I got 6 bows over here ready for Clint. They're all set up at 27-inch draw lengths and 65 pounds. So we're just going to kind of let him go through them and see what he has to say. And it's always cool getting other people's opinions, and I can kind of talk to you about specs if you got questions.
Yeah, we'll shoot them all, then we'll talk specs and give you guys a straight dope. All right, the first bow I'm going to shoot is the Hoyt VTM 31 aluminum riser. Like AJ said before, this is set to 27-inch draw length and 65 pounds. So we'll give 2 arrows a rip and see how she shoots. Good shooting bow, like super smooth. Like you were saying, it might ruin me for the rest of the shoot. And actually surprisingly light for being aluminum versus shooting the carbon that I've shot all year.
Yeah.
So, but no, I like this bow a lot.
The HBX Pro cam is just, it's an awesome cam.
Yeah. No, great shooting bow. Let's move on to the next. All right, the next one here is the Darton Prelude 32. Got to be honest, I've never shot a Darton before, I don't think. So this will be the first, but I know like the history of Darton is super long, and a lot of the technology that has come out in other bows, if I'm not mistaken, has been adopted from these guys.
Yeah, so even if you look at this roller guard, this looks very familiar to another roller guard that's on a bow.
Right.
That's because they own 90% of all the patents out there.
Okay.
So now Randy Kitts is redesigning the whole line for Darton right now, and he's coming up with some great stuff.
That's a shooter, man, for sure. Like I didn't quite know what to expect, because like you said, like you don't hear. I mean, I know a little bit of the history of Darton and how long they've been around and how much technology they've kind of, developed for the archery kind of community just in general. But because you don't hear about them a lot, like you maybe think they fall behind or pale in comparison to other bows, but it really doesn't.
You don't open a magazine and see Darton.
Right. Right.
They're not there yet. And honestly, I don't even think he wants to go there. He knows what he's building. He's making an incredible product. And it's just a matter of it getting out there now.
Right. It's a great bow. On to the next. All right, next up is the Mathews 29-inch axle-to-axle Phase 4. And just from picking it up right away, it feels like a Mathews. If you've shot Mathews, they have a certain feel when you grab them, a certain kind of a feel with your in the grip in your hand. And I kind of know what I think I know what I expect from this bow, but we'll give her a rip and see how she feels. So
you've shot Mathews before.
Yeah, I've shot Mathews for a bunch of years, and like it feels like everything you would expect from a Mathews. It's super dead in hand. It has that same draw cycle that I was used to when I shot, and before I changed to Hoyt, it has that little bit of a dump once you get to the back, but doesn't feel aggressive once you get it back. Like has plenty of valley to kind of hang out in and stuff like that. It's not going to jump on you or anything like that. Super dead in hand, and it feels. I mean, if you're a Mathews guy through and through, this bow is going to feel like what you would expect it to feel like.
I mean, they did do a couple things a little different this year. They cut a slot into the riser here, so now you can integrate your stabilizer straight in, which is a pretty cool idea.
Right.
They cut the limbs kind of in half, added more dampening in there, which supposedly cuts down vibration by another 18%.
Right.
So it's a solid bow.
Solid bow, yeah. I mean, Mathews just keeps churning out shooters every year. All right, next bow up is the Elite Omnia. It is a 32-inch axle to axle, right? 32?
Yep, 32.
And last year, I believe it was last year that I shot the Elites. It was a good shooting bow. It was actually one of my, I would say, top 3 of the bows that I've shot. Now, just historically, I personally haven't been a fan of Elites necessarily. Just in the past, I shot them years ago. I thought last year they made a decent. They felt better to me than they had in the past. They've always kind of reminded me a little bit of a prime, just like the way the draw cycle was, and I was never a huge fan of the primes. So we're going to go ahead and give this Elite a rip and see how she feels. Draw cycle felt pretty good. I would say comparable to the quality of bow that I felt that they had last year, where they made some jumps in terms of like what I hadn't liked about them in the past was like I always got a little bit of hand shock.
Yeah.
This one really didn't get much hand shock to speak of. I feel like it's a pretty balanced bow. I like the grip just kind of being more of a riser grip. Now it's not as thin as the Darton was, so there's a little bit more bulk there, but overall it felt like a pretty good shooting bow. I'd say right now there's probably a couple other ones I would prefer versus this one. There's just a little bit of a drop when you get back to anchor. It's not as bad as the Mathews, but there's still just like a little bit.
This is their fastest bow that they've ever had. So in order to get that speed, I mean, obviously you look at these cams, they're huge.
Right.
So Elite has never had a cam like this.
Right.
So this cam is very aggressive for a Elite.
Right.
But again, this bow kind of falls into that speed bow category where it's right there with the fastest bows on the market.
Right.
So you do have to sacrifice a little bit in that draw cycle, but I mean, Elite did a heck of a job. I mean, this bow is really quiet and really dead at the shot.
Yeah.
Like you said, you really feel zero vibration. I mean, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty solid bow.
Yeah. Good overall bow. I like it. Probably just not quite the preferred one of all the ones that I've shot to this point. So we'll jump into the next bow. All right, the next bow up in the lineup is the Elite Era. This one is a 31.25-inch axle to axle, 7-inch brace. I think all the other stuff that I shot to this point has been 6. The next one I'll shoot will be the Hoyt Carbon RX7, and that one is like I think a 6.25. So everything pretty similar. This is the only one that has a slightly larger brace height. So we'll go ahead and give this a rip and see how it feels. This is the other carbon bow that I'm going to shoot today. So this one, along with the Hoyt RX7, are the 2 carbon bows that I'm going to shoot today. So I'm going to shoot those back to back just to kind of see how they feel.
This is Elite's first carbon bow. So this is the Omnia cam, same exact cam that's on the Omnia. They built this quite a bit different. So this is a 7.25 brace versus the 6-inch brace that's on the Omnia. So you are still getting good speeds out of a 7.25-inch brace bow, which is pretty cool. They kind of built this carbon bow to look like it's more of a machined riser. So I think they did a really nice job on the looks of the bow. The cam, again, it's the Omnia cam, so it does have that little bit more of an aggressive feel to it. But what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like shooting the Elites both Elite bows back to back, it almost felt like, even though they're the same cams, it felt like this one drew just a little bit different. Like, I don't know if it's because the bow was lighter.
I think it has to do with the brace.
Right, because I could feel like the little bit of the hump into the back wall a little bit more on this one.
Right.
Super light bow. Once I kind of got it back, everything felt good. I do like the grip on this. Again, I'm a sucker for a grip that's just kind of like a bare riser, and this is a really thin. It just seems to fit my hand better, And then, but I did feel just, I'm going to shoot the RX7, but I have shot it for like the past year. It's what I hunted with.
Yeah.
And that carbon bow is just so dead that it feels like a heavy aluminum bow, even though it's so light.
Yeah.
This one I could just definitely feel a little bit of a hand shock, and that like a little bit of a ting kind of sound, like when you let it go, that you kind of historically had got with carbon bows. But shot great otherwise. For me, I just think because I've shot a carbon bow the past year, and that's kind of what I'm used to, and I know it's super dead in hand. Those would be the only kind of things I think about. I would say about this. All right, next up is the Hoyt Carbon Fiber RX7. I have my bow in the truck actually, but this is a bare bow just to compare it to all the other bare bows. This is the bow that I've shot for the past this past hunting season. I really like the way this bow shoots, but I just want to shoot it bare so we can kind of compare it to everything else. So we'll give this arrow or this bow a couple rips and see how it feels.
I know what you're going to say about this.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I literally was out in the yard shooting my bow yesterday, and even just with nothing on it. And I don't have much else on my bow other than I do have a back bar in the sight, and that's about it. So it adds a little bit of weight. But this thing is just super dead in hand. It's super light. I toted it around Idaho with Wilson, for a week, and it wasn't too much to kind of carry around. The thing that the reason why I switched from Mathews to Hoyt was because of how dead this thing was in my hand. That's one of the biggest things I personally look for. I can usually tolerate draw cycles and stuff like that. The thing that I don't like is whenever I get hand shock afterwards, or because it almost takes my focus off of watching my arrow hit the deer, and I looked at my bow to grab my bow.
You wonder if you even shot this bow when you shoot.
That's just it. And the draw cycle is just so smooth, a little bit different than the Darton. Whereas that one feels like it's loaded and I have the same load all the way back and it's smooth. This one draws super easy, but you get a little bit of an increase as you go, but it's not so much that you have that hump in the back where you drop in,
Yeah, Hoyt did a heck of a job. I mean, last year this bow came out and they did not change it this year. I mean, there was such a demand for this bow that they kept it exactly the same.
Yeah.
So this is the new riser that they put out last year. It's a 2-tube riser versus the 3-tube. So aesthetically, it's much cleaner looking.
Mm-hmm.
The HBX Pro cam, which is the new cam, it's just an incredible carbon bow.
All right, so we shot a bunch of bows. Wilson and I shot them, and now after kind of shooting them, comparing to what I shot last year, the RX-7, I kind of have my ranking of what I prefer. And I think for me, number one was the RX-7. I have a lot of familiarity with that bow, so of course it's going to be the one that I prefer. But number two, actually, I didn't think that I would prefer to go back to an aluminum and like it as much, but the Hoyt VTM 31 just felt really, really good. And it's not surprising because it had a very similar draw cycle and stuff to the RX-7, just a little heavier. Right. But third, and you could almost say it's second, because I'd almost throw the RX-7 out for me personally, because that's just what I've been shooting. But the Darton, and I didn't see that coming because I shot Mathews before I switched to Hoyt. And so Mathews is just very familiar to me. And I was like, oh, the Mathews, thinking of it before we did this, I was like, I'll probably like the Mathews, like next to the Hoyt. Right. But actually the Darton, especially for it being a speed bow, how smooth it was, like that was the one that I really kind of gravitated toward. Then it was the Mathews, and then it was the Elite Omnia. And then the Elite Era after that was kind of how I prioritized those as far as my preference. But all great flagship bows, like we always say, when you're at a flagship bow level, you're splitting hairs.
Exactly. It's personal feel.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point in the game, I mean, they're all great bows.
Right. And it was interesting when Wilson was shooting too, just you making the point that, I shoot 26.5, 27-inch draw, right? Yeah. So some of these are going to be, I'm going to feel like maybe they're smoother than it would be to maybe Wilson or you who have 29, 30-inch draw lengths, because you're getting, like you said, I never thought of it this way, but you're getting an extra, 2 inches to almost 3 inches
of
more
cam rotation,
right, which makes a little bit of difference. But what did you think of the two that you shot?
I love the Darton. If I were to go back to an aluminum riser, I would shoot that any day of the week. Mm-hmm. I've always shot Mathews. I think that's the only bow I ever shot. Yeah. I went from like the no cam to the Halon 32 to the VXR to the V3, and then the V3X was the first year I didn't switch.
You were always like a Mathews guy.
Always shot Mathews, and then I went to shoot a Hoyt, and I was really impressed with Hoyt that they were very honest this year when they said, "Hey, we had a big demand for the RX-7, so we're just putting it out. Yeah. The same bow." We're just releasing it again. Instead of making it the RX-7R or the RX-7XS75451. They were like, this is a great bow. People loved it, so we're just going to release it again. I thought that was super. I was impressed by Hoyt by just being honest and saying, we're not going to change anything, and here it is.
And Hoyt made a big jump last year. I mean, they really stepped out of their box and made a huge jump. I mean, from the riser design to the cam to everything.
Yeah, I mean, it went from for years I hadn't shot a Hoyt even in trying new bows because I just had not liked any of the ones earlier. Like just nothing, I didn't like anything about them.
Right.
And then last year it was like, wow, this is a completely different bow. And it's not just that, that they changed things materially on it or mechanically on it. It was that it functionally felt different. It felt like a brand new bow.
They re-engineered the bow top to bottom.
Yeah. And then one other thing to add about Darton, you were mentioning as we were kind of like wrapping up the video stuff, was that, it's sometimes nice to work with a small company because you get that personalized
Absolutely.
attention.
Yeah.
What I mean?
I love working with a smaller company. I mean, if I have a question, I pick up my phone and I can send Randy Kitsy, owner of Darton, a text.
Right.
I mean, it's
Right.
It's nice having that kind of communication with a company.
Yeah.
And it's nice knowing what they're doing and trying to build this company back up and get that name out there again, and they're putting out a great product.
Yeah, so if someone's looking for a new bow and they may not be in the carbon market because of the price point, if you're sticking in the aluminum riser kind of space, I would give the Darton a try because that
price point and specs on that bow it's almost a no-brainer in the aluminum era. But I think if you're brand loyal, and this is a big thing I said on the last video, if you're brand loyal, you're like, I only shoot Elite, you're gonna like Elite's new bow. You're gonna love it. Yeah. If you only shoot Mathews, you're gonna love Mathews' new bow.
Right.
But yeah, if you're brand loyal, all these new flagship bows are gonna be right in your wheelhouse. Like they didn't go down.
Yeah. Yeah, no one took a big downward turn. But with that, if you guys are local, be sure to come out to Bob and AJ's, check out the shop, talk to our buddy AJ here. He'll get you set up, get you squared away.
Happy to take care of you.
They're open 24/7, 7 days a week.
If you're not local, hit the website. I'll put the link in the description so you guys can check that out.